Subscribe to the channel to begin today's story with life stories, where real emotions, quiet strength, and unforgettable journeys unfold. In today's story, we follow Allison, a young woman who believed hard work and love from her family would carry her far. But when her father gives away her college fund to support her unreliable brother, Allison is left with nothing except resilience. What begins as betrayal slowly transforms into something more powerful: purpose, growth, and a dream built from ashes. Subscribe now to start the story and discover how the orchard came to bloom. I used to think my dad saw me, really saw me, not just as his daughter, but as a person, whole, capable, and real. When he'd smile and ruffle my hair after I aced another math test or came home with a scholarship application in hand, I thought it meant something. He'd say things like, "You're the smart one, Allison. You're gonna go far." And I believed him. I carried that belief like a torch in the dark, especially on the nights I stayed up studying while the rest of the world slept. I believed that if I just worked hard enough, stayed disciplined, and followed the rules, life would reward me. And so would he. From the age of 15, I spent my weekends working in a local bakery in our small Texas town. While other teenagers were at the movies or hanging out at the lake, I was bagging pastries and scrubbing mixing bowls. Every dollar I earned, I saved. Every moment of free time, I buried in books and university applications. It wasn't glamorous, but I had a dream: Stanford. Not just for the name, but for the possibility. The idea that I could become someone who built something of her own, on her own. And then the letter came. Stanford wanted me. A full acceptance. I held that letter like it was proof that all the sacrifices had been worth it. I ran home, heart pounding, ready to show my parents. What I didn't know was that while I was chasing a future, mine had already been sold. It was over breakfast, scrambled eggs, burnt toast, and betrayal served with coffee. My dad, casual as ever, said the words I can still hear, clear as crystal. I used the money. I didn't understand at first. What money? He sipped his coffee, unfazed. "Your college fund," he said. "I put it into Jake's new business. Your brother needed a push. You'll understand one day." I remember how the room seemed to tilt, like gravity had suddenly gone sideways. My hands shook. I could barely speak. The college fund my mother had started when I was 5, the one that had sat untouched even when we struggled to buy groceries or gas, was gone. Spent. Not on a house, not on a family emergency, but on Jake. Jake, my older brother by 2 years. The same Jake who coasted through school, barely passed, dropped out of 2 community colleges, and couldn't keep a job if it was glued to his hands. That Jake now had a trendy bar downtown called Jake's Place, lit up in neon and funded by my future. And my father laughed. Actually laughed. "You'll thank me later," he said, as if he'd done me a favor. Family helps each other. I didn't thank him. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just stood up from the table, placed my napkin down like a final line in a conversation I hadn't agreed to, and walked out the front door. I left home that same week. I moved in with my best friend Lauren, who didn't ask questions when I showed up with 2 duffel bags and a box of books. She just made up the couch, handed me a mug of hot tea, and let me sit in silence. I didn't have Stanford anymore, but I still had a pulse. I found 2 waitressing jobs and enrolled in night classes at the local community college. Every night, I passed Jake's Place on my way home from work. Music pulsing through the windows, girls in glittery dresses laughing in line, bartenders shouting drink specials. Jake had my tuition tied up in LED lights and liquor, and I had a diner apron soaked in coffee and floor cleaner. But even in that heartbreak, something new began to stir. Not revenge. Not yet. Just something quiet and stubborn. A seed. Maybe it was the long walks home. Maybe it was the silence in my childhood bedroom that now belonged to Jake's ego. But I started writing ideas in a notebook. Dreams that didn't involve Stanford or my father's approval or Jake's shadow. I didn't want to get even. I wanted to build something no one could take from me. And that, I suppose, is where this story really begins. It started small. Just me, Lauren, and a folding table at the edge of Zilker Park on Saturdays. I called it Whisk and Bloom. We baked at night in her tiny apartment kitchen, our hands powdered with flour, our conversations soft and steady like the rising of dough. Lauren had a way of calming the air around her. She wasn't just helping me bake, she was helping me believe again. We offered free samples at first: cinnamon rolls, scones, a lemon poppy seed cake that always disappeared first. People noticed. We became a kind of gentle presence at the park, tucked between dog walkers and stroller pushers. There was a retired woman named Helen who came every weekend for our lemon scones. One Saturday, she said, "You remind me of myself when I was young, except you're smarter." Her words landed somewhere deep inside me, someplace fragile I hadn't visited in a while. Meanwhile, the world kept spinning for everyone else. Jake's place was still making noise, still flashing its lights across downtown Austin. But beneath the glow, things were beginning to crack. Lauren heard it first. A man in a cheap suit walked into the cafe one night while I was closing. He asked about Jake's bar, said something about investors backing out. I froze, dish towel in hand. It was the kind of news that didn't surprise me, but still, it stirred something sharp. That night, I called Lauren. She'd heard rumors. Jake had tried to open a second location, taken bad loans from people you don't find on Google. My dad had stepped in, of course. Took out a loan. Covered Jake's mess. The same man who wouldn't spare a dime for my textbooks was now paying off liquor debts. I didn't sleep that night. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, feeling everything. Anger, disgust, a flicker of pity, but also something else: clarity. They wouldn't stop. Not unless someone made them. I flipped open my notebook and turned past all the half-written recipes and bakery cost breakdowns. I wrote a new heading: Buy Jake's Place. It felt ridiculous at first, like the kind of thing people only say in movies before the montage. But the more I stared at those words, the more they stopped being a fantasy. They became a plan. I spent the following weeks learning everything I could about leaseholds, LLC transfers, small business regulations. I met with a real estate agent named Rob, who specialized in commercial spaces, especially the kind that were failing. Rob didn't sugarcoat anything. He told me Jake's bar was behind on payments, the liquor license was under review, and the LLC paperwork was a mess. "You wouldn't be buying a business," he said. "You'd be buying a carcass." Strangely, that didn't scare me. I'd built something before, from sugar, sweat, and spite. I could do it again. Only this time, I'd build it out of the ruins they left behind. And I would call it the Orchard. I didn't expect it to be easy, but I hadn't expected this part to feel so heavy. Rob told me Jake still had partial control of the lease. "You'll need his signature," he said. "Otherwise, the landlord can't release the space to you." My stomach turned. I'd prepared for permits, debt, rebuilding. Not this. Not a face-to-face with the very person who made me start over. It took 2 days to find him. Not at the bar, he hadn't shown up there in weeks, but at a pool party, grinning in someone's Instagram story. That night, I waited outside his apartment. He pulled up just past 11, music thumping from the BMW that Dad had helped him lease. When he saw me step into his headlights, he slammed the brakes. "What the hell, Allison?" he said, rolling down the window. I opened the passenger door and slid in. No hello. No warning. "I want Jake's place." He laughed, loud and bitter, like it was all a joke. "You've been waiting for this, haven't you? To gloat?" "No," I said. My voice didn't shake. "I want to buy it, legally, clean. You sign over the lease rights and the LLC. I take it. You walk away." He scoffed. "You think you can run it better than me?" "I don't think," I said. "I know." There was a pause. A silence so tight you could stretch it like wire. Then he asked, "What's in it for me?" "You get to walk away without lawsuits or debt collectors," I said. "No one dragging your name through court. You don't burn the rest of what's left." He looked at me for a long time, like he was deciding whether to punch the steering wheel or laugh again. Finally, he muttered, "Dad would never approve." I met his eyes. "Dad doesn't own it. You do. And if you stall this, I'll make sure no investor ever forgets your record." I got out of the car, left him sitting there, engine running, still pretending he had control. 2 days later, I got a text. Fine. No apology. No emotion, just permission. And that was enough. By the end of the week, the keys were mine. I didn't walk into the space with triumph. I walked in with sleeves rolled up. The place reeked of stale beer and failure. Posters curled at the corners, Jake's face still grinning from old cocktail menus. I ripped it all down. Every last piece. The renovation took weeks. Lauren helped on weekends. Contractors came and went. We painted the walls cream and sage, replaced the blackout windows with glass that caught morning light. I kept nothing of Jake's. Not a chair, not a tap handle. This wasn't a remodel, it was a rebirth. Opening day arrived beneath a soft golden sky. The orchard glowed under its new sign. Inside, flowers rested at each table, and the pastry case gleamed with rows of care. Lemon bars, peach tarts, honey lavender cookies. Late in the afternoon, I stepped outside. Across the street, Jake was leaning against a lamppost. He didn't wave, didn't sneer. He just nodded. And that was enough. The day the orchard officially opened, I stood behind the counter in a crisp white blouse, an apron stitched with a small embroidered tree, roots deep, branches reaching. It felt fitting. Every pastry in the case, every flower on the tables, every beam of sunlight through the windows felt like a quiet, defiant declaration. I built this, built this. The cafe hummed with soft conversation, clinking glasses, and the gentle warmth of a space that welcomed without shouting. It wasn't just a business, it was a sanctuary, a second chance. Later that evening, an older woman approached the counter. She had silver hair and eyes that had seen too much life to be easily impressed. She studied the menu, then looked at me. "This place," she said softly, "feels like it was always meant to be here." I smiled and answered, "It just needed the right roots." There was no grand moment of revenge, no cinematic applause, no dramatic apology from those who hurt me, but there was peace. And sometimes that's the truest kind of victory. I used to think I needed recognition to prove I mattered. Now I just need a quiet morning, warm scones, and the soft sound of chairs sliding back from full tables. That's enough. Thanks for walking this journey with me, from betrayal to bloom. If you've ever had something taken from you, know this: you can still grow, even in broken soil, especially there. Don't forget to subscribe to Life Stories for more powerful, true to life tales about love, resilience, and the unexpected turns that shape who we become. New videos every week. See you in the next story.